Hello, everybody, and welcome here with Jeff the Future Jaros to the Future Q&As. This is my first episode here with the Southern wrestling legend, Ron, the Tennessee Stud Fuller. How are you doing today, Ron?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Great.
I'm glad to have you here. Now, if I'm correct, are you in Florida or are you in Tennessee?
I'm in Tennessee now. Been down in Florida for 20 years. But moved back to Tennessee about a year ago now, close to a year ago.
So, if I'm correct, I've been listening to a lot of your interviews that you've done with Hannibal and whatnot online. And one thing I hear you talk about is how deep your family started into wrestling back in the day. Like you said, 30s and stuff.
Oh, yeah, man. Actually, before that, I come from the oldest and the largest wrestling family on the planet.
Yeah, that's what I kind of wanted you to tell me about. Like, what is the origins and, like, how did your family get started into it, and how long back was that, Ron?
My grandfather started wrestling professionally in about 1923 in Columbus, Ohio, when they're one of the first territories that was ever done. And he was trained by the great Dutch Mantell, not the old Harry Dutch that we know now, but the original Dutch Mantell.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. I am not familiar with this Dutch Mantell.
I tell you what, I've done some of my stud casts.
I need to get into listening
Dutch Mantell, several of them.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the most fascinating characters in the history of wrestling.
Okay, and he has no correlation to Dirty Dutch.
No. But Dirty Dutch got his name from there. Actually, Dirty Dutch got his name from my dad. My dad told him Wayne. His name was Wayne Cowan.
Yeah.
And my dad said, you got all this hair and you got your face is kind of grubby looking. He says, you ought to use the guy that trained my dad to wrestle. Use his name, Dutch Mantell, and that's how Dutch got his name. But from the old original Dutch Mantell.
And I've never heard that from Dutch. Actually, I haven't heard him say that either. That's something interesting that I've never knew about really. So that's interesting to know. So you go way back, and you actually started out. You bought Southeast Championship Wrestling off your father, was it?
Well, actually, I'm a third generation wrestler.
Right.
My dad wrestled and was a promoter. In a lot of different territories. He was known as a builder of territories. He went to places that weren't ever good wrestling cities, and he would light them up, man. Make big, huge places out of them. And then so I started wrestling in 1970 in the Georgia territory. Played basketball at the University of Miami, and then went and started wrestling afterward. But my grandfather started, like I said, in the 20s. He had three brothers, and they all started wrestling. And then the whole lineage, man. My brother and I, as Lester Welch has two sons, they both wrestled. Herb Welch had two sons, they both wrestled. Then the Fields brothers had two sons each, and there were three of those Field brothers. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Jimmy Golden is a part of our family.
Yeah, I saw that you tag teamed with him.
Yeah, Jimmy's a part of our family. It's just come from a huge wrestling family. And not just wrestlers, but promoters.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I'm really interested in. I know you've wrestled for a long time, but you also promoted yourself. And your brother is Colonel Robert Parker, right?
Yeah.
And that's very cool.
Tennessee Lee.
What did you ever?
WWE.
What do you think of your brother's career? Did you enjoy his times? Did you even watch him in WCW, WWF?
I watched him a little bit at WCW. I didn't watch him much on WWE. I really didn't care for WWE, and things kind of changed after the territories were gone. Wrestling changed dramatically.
Yes, we know he did.
But Rob had a really good career. He was able to. He managed some tremendous guys with WCW. Austin.
Yep. Sid
Vicious.
Sid Vicious?
Yeah, Sid Vicious. Austin. Wow, a tremendous number of guys.
Um,
Had a great group. He had Jimmy Golden. He had my cousin Jimmy was a bunkhouse buck
yep,
along with
Bunkhouse
Bruce Slater.
Buck. To tell you the truth, I didn't know that Jimmy Golden was Bunkhouse Buck.
That's bunkhouse buck.
But he
Yeah,
had the infamous match with Dustin Rhodes where they bled and they weren't supposed to bleed and they both got fired, right?
I think so, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wow, Jimmy was a great wrestler. We had like probably 20 different wrestlers and a couple of referees, and you know, like I said, three of us. My dad was a great promoter and an owner of a company. Roy started it. Roy was the centerpiece of wrestling in the South.
What?
When he left Columbus, Ohio, he went to Tennessee, and he eventually had one of the biggest territories that was ever run. Had 12 states in the South that he ran wrestling in.
Was he affiliated with NWA or anybody like that, or
No,
did he just?
he was before the NWA.
Okay,
He
so
was an original member of the first NWA when it was formed in 1948.
and
He was one of the guys they wanted in there because he had such big territory.
yeah, great. That's awesome. That is really awesome. But on your Wikipedia, it says that you actually debuted in 1972, but you said you actually debuted in 70, huh?
Yeah, 1970. I started in 1970 and spent 6 months in Georgia, and then I went to Florida for about 4 years.
What?
Really learned a lot in Florida.
One thing I really like to hear about is, do you have any recollections or any thing to tell me about your first match ever that you remember, or when you got into the business, an actual first match?
Oh, geez, I think my brother and I probably wrestled in the tag match, first match I ever had. The very first match I ever had was with my dad as a partner in Jonesboro, Arkansas, against Dick Dunn and Don Carson.
What was that experience like? Was it everything that you ever dreamed of, or were you like, I don't know what
It was a great experience. My grandfather came, and my grandmother and my great-grandmother came to the match. They drove from in Tennessee. They had to cross the river, Mississippi River. They came into Jonesboro, and they almost got arrested because they were sitting on the first row, and Don Carson had me in a hammerlock, and he drugged me over to where they were, and he knew who they were, and he said, you grandmas? He says, I'm going to break his arm. Watch this. And he was just shoving my arm up my back. And they both got out of their seats and came to the ring, and the police came and got them, took them outside the building.
Oh, man.
So it was a little excitement in my first match. They almost arrested my grandmother, my great-grandmother.
Well, that's a heck of a first match memory. So, that was the first experience you had in front of people and all that, right? So,
yeah, that was my very first match. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you here. I mean, we're about 10 minutes in already, so I'll have a give or take. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is, you're 73 years old now?
Yep.
And one of the things I always hear about is the injuries and the things the body goes through with wrestling. Have you had any how's your body held up over the years?
Well, I'm very lucky, man. I'm walking still. A whole lot of guys don't. That were in there for a long time. I've had about 3 knee operations. I've broken my collarbone twice. One time drove it into my sternum.
Oh, man.
Got 300, 400 stitches. Yeah, this the normal stuff that guys get. Like I said, though, been a lot luckier than most guys.
Yeah, I know some guys that are in real bad shape.
Oh yeah, geez, a whole lot of guys in wheelchairs, and it's really terrible, man. It was a tough business. But it was fun. It was an exciting business, and I got to travel all over the world, man. I've wrestled damn near everywhere, man. Europe, Africa, Australia, Japan, Mexico, Canada, all over the Caribbean, and practically every island in the Caribbean, and and all over the country. So I got to see the world, and make a pretty darn good living at the same time.
That's amazing, man. But here's the thing I wanted to ask you about. Now, one thing I always like to hear about from people, especially from back in your day, who was your least favorite and your favorite opponents?
Oh man, I was always had a reputation as being a little stiff in the ring, man, and so I didn't like working with guys that were kind of a little bit of a pussy sometimes, right?
Yeah, right.
You whack them around a little bit, and they kind of want to So my favorite opponent, man, was one of the guys that was he was a bad son of a gun, a really tough guy. Guys hated to work with him. One of the guys that had a horrible reputation around the country, and he happened to be my favorite, was Johnny Valentine.
Oh yeah.
Johnny Valentine was a hoss, man. Johnny Valentine should have been an NWA world champion. He's one of those guys that had it all. He had the look and everything else. And some of my least favorites, I really don't want to say, one of them's pretty well known, but I don't want to mention his name.
For least favorites, yeah.
I had a lot of people didn't really like to work with me. When they got to the town and they found out they were working with me, I saw some pretty funny looks on some guys' faces.
If they saw you up on the list against them, they were like, "Uh-oh, we might be in for it."
Yeah, it's going to be a hard night.
You ain't no walk in the park when they got up against you. So, what do you think your reasons for actually getting out in 1988 was for?
Well, it was what happened to everybody else. I not only had Southeastern Wrestling, a first company I started in 74. I bought my second company in 1978. In 1985, I combined both of those companies into Continental Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Then my last company was USA Wrestling in 1988. And Vince was coming in and taking over the territories and destroying the sport. And so I got out. I mean, I had a long run. I had 18 years, not just as a wrestler, but trying to run companies for 18 years, and just burned out. And I said, well, it looks like to me, this is the end of it, the end of the way it used to be for my dad, for my granddad, for hundreds of wrestlers that lost their livelihoods because Vince wanted to own it all.
Right.
And so I left, and I tell you what I did. I played for about 6 months, and then, man, I got into hockey.
Yeah.
Of all things.
Yeah, I heard that you've owned some hockey teams, and
I own 2 hockey teams. And,
do you still to this day?
I lit up minor league hockey. Minor league hockey was nothing in the South, and I got my first team in Nashville. I drew 6,000 people the opening night. A league that had never drawn 2,000. And then went to Cincinnati the next year and drew 10,000 for 38 games in a row one year.
Wow.
I mean, we just turned hockey on fire. And what we did is we created the game introductions that are in every sport now, indoor sport.
Yeah.
We were the first one to do a game introduction in Nashville, Tennessee, with my Nashville Knights in 1989, and the Bulls picked it up and ran with it the next year, and everybody ran with it.
I'm a huge Chicago Bulls fan, being from Illinois.
The Bulls got their game opening idea from our company.
That's really cool.
In Nashville, Tennessee.
What song did you guys use?
We played "Bad to the Bone."
Bad to the Bone. That's pretty sweet. Is there any old footage out there of that?
That's a Bob Armstrong song. That was his introduction song.
Oh yeah, Bullet Bob.
Yep.
Is there any footage of those hockey games?
Oh man, I think I have one game on tape, but I haven't seen that tape in a long time. It's probably stored somewhere, and I'll come across it someday. But I think I have one game from the Nashville team and one game from the Cincinnati team.
Well, that'd be neat to see if you could you had the introductions taped.
Yeah. I have a YouTube channel, man, and I think I'll throw that tape on the YouTube channel.
That'll be neat. That'll be really neat.
Wow, that'll be a great one for fans.
Yeah, it will. That's something
totally
to see.
Different.
Yeah, it is. And what was I saying about hockey? Are you still in the hockey?
Nope.
When did you get out of that?
I sold out. I was in it from 1989 to 1994. I sold both my teams, or my interest in the second one. Sold the first one with my two partners, and then the second one, I was bought out, and I kind of retired and I went to the Keys and played in the Keys for 3 years because I went to school at the University of Miami. I always told my buddies, I said, man, I'm going to come back here someday when I get retired, and I'm going to play, man, in this part of the country. And I did that for 3 years, and then I went back and I wrote a book.
I saw
a
that
book, but a thriller of a book about a lion getting loose in the Smoky Mountains National Park.
That's really good, like a jack all trades here.
Yeah, man, and then after that, I got into ADT security.
Nice.
And I got a franchise for ADT security, and I became the 12th largest dealer in North America, man.
That's awesome. So, one thing back on the wrestling note, had anybody ever, when you retired in '88, did anybody ever contact you from any company trying to get you to work for them or anything like that?
No, I think the reputation got around that I had left and I was in hockey. I wouldn't have gone back to wrestling, to be quite honest with you. I made more money in hockey than I made in wrestling.
You never even thought about managing like your brother, huh?
No way. You know, my brother, in fact, worked for me with my hockey team.
Okay, while he was managing too?
Yeah, well, he was doing some wrestling with Smoky Mountain Wrestling with Jim Cornette. But he had time on his hands, and he needed to make some extra money, and so I put him on with my Cincinnati Cyclone team.
And he's doing well.
He's had him working in the office.
He's doing well now, right?
Yeah, Rod's doing good. He lives in Tampa, down there in the Tampa area, and man, he's in good health. He's lucky like me.
Yep.
And doing well.
Was your father? Did he live his full life, or?
Yeah, my dad died in 1996, and he was probably about my age, I guess, when he died, around 73.
Did he wrestle or just promote?
No, he was both.
Okay.
He did both, man.
So it sounds like you guys got a good lineage then.
Yeah, so did Roy. Roy did both. And I did both. I mean, it's kind of odd, man. Probably the only 3 generations in the history of the sport that all were wrestlers and owners.
That's amazing. That's one of the main things I wanted to talk to you for, because I mean, you're like definitely a legend in Southern wrestling, and you deserve a lot more credit than what I hear about people giving you anyway. I don't hear your name come up that much.
Yeah, because I left.
Yeah.
You know, if I had gone into say WCW with Rob, I would have not gone in there as a wrestler, but boy, they missed the boat by not taking me in there as a booker for them, man, and to run their company. I could do a lot better job than what they're doing now with what they got.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Things have changed just a little bit. Let's just say that. Okay, so to round out the interview here, since it's just a shorter interview here because you only have like 15, 20 minutes, I'd like to play a little bit of a name association, name game. Just name some names, and you give me the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
And I've looked up, so I know that you've actually had associations with all these guys because I listen to your interviews and whatnot. So, Arn Anderson.
Wow. Great wrestler, man. Good guy. Deserves everything he got. He earned it.
Right. One of my favorites of all time is Double A. Still out there to this day. How about Kevin Sullivan?
Oh, another great guy, a great worker, a smart booker, a great mind. He put WCW, he gave them their best angle that they ever had when they brought in Hogan and the whole group, and they had the I can't remember
the NWO,
yeah. The whatever their name was,
the New World Order
against Sting and all that.
Yep,
that was Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah, he was still a great mind to this day. Here's one that I've been wanting to hear. I hear you talk about this guy a lot. Old the headbanger Joe LeDuc.
Oh yeah, great guy Joe. Wow, one soft-hearted, just a great person to be around. Gave you everything he had in every match. Probably got more blood in his matches than any guy that because he didn't have the looks of everybody else, but worked for me in Southeastern in Knoxville, and then he worked for me in Southeastern in Pensacola. And he worked with another guy that's a classic dude, the Mongolian Stomper, Archie Goldie, man, out of Canada. And those two guys, those two bald-headed, big, huge monsters, gave me some of the greatest matches, and the fans in the South, some of the greatest matches they have ever seen.
Yeah, you've talked about the infamous angle that they wanted to break bricks on their heads.
They did.
And it was
that
legit.
Is something else. If people ever have a chance to see that, go on YouTube and look for the blockbusting with the Mongolian Stomper and the Jola Duke, and tell me that ain't real.
Was he in your territory when he did the blood oath?
Yes.
Oh, can you
say? Did after that angle, 2 months, about a month after that angle, when he got out of the hospital. Joe was in the hospital and almost broke Joe's neck.
Oh yeah.
That angle. And then he did the first blood oath I'd ever seen him do. He ended up doing it in other places, but that's a pretty phenomenal looking thing too, man.
That blood oath. I heard Jim Cornette is who brought me up on that, because I was listening to his podcast and he brought that blood oath up. I looked it up too, and I was like, wow, this guy, he was something.
Yeah, he gave it. He gave his all, man. He gave his all every night.
I kind of didn't even know that they tried to use him in the WWF in like 1988 as the headbanger.
Yeah, he got to after he did the blockbusting thing. And he really hurt his neck. His career dropped off because he wasn't as solid and he wasn't as tough as he had been. He had been injured.
Right.
That happened to a lot of guys.
Yeah. He had gained considerable weight, it seemed like, too, by the time he was in there.
Yeah.
Okay, the next guy, I got a couple more guys, and then we'll let you go, Ron. Bruiser Brody?
Oh, man, I love him. A great guy, Bruiser. Spent 3 weeks in Japan with him and Stan Hansen. And, wow, what an experience working with those two guys.
Yeah, I bet.
They talk about the tough guys. There's two of them right there, man, right up there with Johnny Valentine. Nobody liked to work with those two guys, especially in Japan, because they were maniacs, and and that's what got them over. Bruiser was a great guy. Frank was a great guy, a great dude, and so was Stan. Stan's still a good friend of mine, and I've done the Super Stud cast with Stan. I got some Super Stud cast out there that with all kinds of different wrestlers. So a lot of them you've talked about. Dutch Mantell, Kevin Sullivan. I've got 43 of those out there.
Heck yeah, man. Bruiser Brody, where did you see him going if he would have not, been untimely murdered?
Well, he probably would. He was damn sure good enough to be an NWA champion, man. No doubt about that. But he was a little his mindset was different than most guys, and I don't know that he'd made a good champion.
Yeah,
because he would have not made guys look as good as he should have, and you don't want to have a world champion that just kicks the hell out of everybody he wrestles.
Yeah, I heard a lot of guys wouldn't even step in there against him. I think Dutch Mantell said he never would wrestle him.
Yeah, a lot of guys were scared of him. A lot of guys wouldn't work with him at all.
And then there's 3 names and then that's all I want to name. Okay, the first one is Ric Flair.
Oh yeah, Rick and I go way back. First time I met him was in 1973 in St. Louis. We both on the St. Louis card. He was coming out of Charlotte in Mid-Atlantic territory, and I was coming out of Florida territory. And and known him for many years. He worked for me, God, probably 40 times in my companies. And I took him down. I used to promote sometimes even in the Cayman Islands in the Caribbean. And I brought Rick in there one time, and he begged me. He said, "Ron, I got to come down there. I hear that's a beautiful island." He said, "I work for free." I said, "No, you don't need to work for free." But yeah, he really wanted to come down. Great guy.
Do you still talk to Rick?
Oh yeah.
Sweet. And then the last 2 I wanted to mention, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, now, hey, to be honest with you, I only met Macho Man one time in my life, and this is really a strange story. I was in the Keys, living in the Keys, been out of wrestling for many, many years. And I went, because they were wrestling in Miami, Arn was on that card, and so was Ric Flair.
Right.
And I went from the Keys up there to see those guys, just to, hang out with them for a little bit. And I got on an elevator in the building with Macho Man.
Oh, wow.
And, and obviously I knew who he was, but I didn't know that he knew who I was. And
right.
We were just going up the elevator, and he says, I've always wanted to meet you, man.
Really?
Yeah, he goes, oh, God, I really watched your shit. You good, man. You were really good, And I was like, well, geez, thanks, man.
Quite a compliment from a guy like him that was.
Yeah, he, and from what I hear, he was a good dude. He was a good dude. He got killed in a car accident across from my bank, and when I lived in Seminole, Florida.
That's kind of
Every
ironic.
time I went to the bank, I saw the tree that he hit.
That's crazy. That's ironic. Okay, and then the final guy, Ron, before I let you out of here, and I really appreciate you doing this for me, but one of my favorites of all time, and I think it's almost everybody's favorite of all time, and that'd be Andre the Giant.
Oh, man. I got a ton of stories about Andre, man. Gosh. I got a 3-hour Super Studcast on Andre.
Is there one good story that you can think of that you haven't told to take us out of here on?
Oh, well, let's see. Let me think. And in fact, I'm right now. I do a Studcast.
Right.
I've been doing it for. I'm at episode number 240 next week. So and it's about Andre. Andre is in that episode, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And Andre was going with me, and I just opened up my second territory in Pensacola, Florida. I had the Knoxville territory. It was about 3 years old, and I just opened up in Pensacola. And we were flying from Knoxville to Pensacola, and he told me, and he liked to party, and he was partying big time the night before when we left out of Knoxville. I had a hard time getting him out of bed, and I got him to the airport. And he told me when we were in the airport in Atlanta, he says, Ron, I want to sleep. And I said, well, geez, Andre, where are you going to sleep here in the airport? He says, in that chair right there. He showed me the chair. And he says, and I don't want you to let anybody bother me. And I said, well, how am I going to do that, man? And he went and bought a paper. And he opened up the paper, and he sat down in the chair, and he put the paper over his upper body. You couldn't see his hair. You couldn't see his face. You could just see his legs and how big he was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says to me, and he goes, Ron, don't let anybody bother me. So after about 20 minutes, and a lot of people kind of stopped because they noticed, that guy, who is that, And then this one guy comes along, and he says, he goes, that looks like Andre the Giant. And he goes, I want to get his autograph. And I said, no, don't wake him up, man. Leave him alone. Oh, no, I got to have it. And so finally, I tried to tell him, and then I finally just said, okay, go ahead. And he taps Andre on the shoulder. And he says, Andre, Mr. Giant. He goes, I want to get your autograph. And Andre never moved, and he's laying there all laid back. He's got the paper over his face, and he says, go away. And the paper floated up in the air like a cartoon about a foot off of his face, and then came back down on his face. And the guy took off running down the corridor with his bag.
You don't wake a sleeping giant. We all know this,
don't
right?
Wake a giant, man.
No, you do not wake a sleeping giant. And one thing before you get out of here, I was thinking this. You brought Hogan in, right?
Yep. Hogan came from me, man. My Southeastern in Pensacola.
So one thing I have to ask, Sterling Golden?
Yep.
Did he get the name from Jimmy Golden? Or
No, I don't know how the hell he got Sterling Golden. He was given to him by Louis Tollett. Louis was booking, and Louis gave him the name of Sterling Golden. And then he eventually became Hogan, and then he became the Hulk.
Yeah.
But first angle that was ever worked, the biggest angle he ever worked in his life that made him a star and it got him sent to New York was with Andre the Giant, since you brought up Andre.
Yes.
They worked the very first time they ever worked together, wasn't in Detroit, and it wasn't in WWE, it was in Dothan, Alabama.
Yeah, years before.
Yeah.
Man, Ron, I really thank you for your time tonight. I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it. Do you have some links and stuff that you want to shout out on here that people can get a hold of your stuff on or check out your stuff on?
Yeah, sure, man. I have a website, TN Stud for Tennessee Stud. Just TN, the initial Stud. And on that website, I got everything, man. I got 240 studcasts on there. I got 43 3-hour super studcasts with all kinds of wrestlers. You can go visit there. You can get anything on there, all kinds of other things. I have a YouTube site now, Southeastern Rewind, that has it's got all of my USA TV programs. It's got Continental. We're going to be doing Southeastern on it. It's just started. And I actually have a streaming channel. It's ClassicContinentalWrestling.com. And we stream the same thing, a lot of the same things that's on YouTube. So, yeah, I'm back in wrestling now, man, but in a totally different way. I'm not taking any bumps anymore, man.
That's the way to probably do it. But yeah, I really appreciate it, Ron. Everybody go check out the Tennessee Stud at all the links that he just mentioned on his Studcast and all that. You said you've been at it for the last 4 years, right?
4 years, man, and I'm doing my entire life. I'm doing my entire family. I started out with my grandfather in 1902, and I'm 240 episodes in, man, and I'm just now to 1978. And so I've got another 11 years to go, man, and I do it chronologically. So the story goes on week after week.
The story does go on, and I would love to have you back on sometime with another interview if you ever would be.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you very much for inviting me on, Jeff, and wish you the best, man. Hope you do well with this.
I appreciate it, buddy. So there ends my first episode. Thanks a lot, Tennessee Stud Ron Fuller, and have a great evening, night.
I appreciate it, and you too, man.
Thanks a lot, Ron.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so that was the interview with the Tennessee Stud, Ron Fuller. And everybody make sure to check back on the channel for more interviews. Make sure you go check out Ron Fuller. I really appreciate him getting on the interview. And like I always say, guys, on all my other videos I ever do, stay calm, watch pro wrestling, and peace out.